I hope that after a full episode on relief, Galen's feeling better.
Oh, he's probably doing great. He's traveling back to his special place after all, Los Angeles, his favorite city in the world, for which he carries nothing but deeply rooted love. Its vibes, the way it's organized, its culture, and the way people are. It's everything he adores, and I am I am certain that as we speak, he is basking in it, reconnecting with what truly brings joy to his heart and soul.
Help!
Which makes me think it's time we travel back to our comfort zones, too. Musically, of course, and drive into some Hoyo games for me and some more. Wait, you play Destiny? Anyway, we'll clear that up very soon. Welcome to the Music Arcade. Hello everybody to Music Arcade. I am Ranakel.
And I'm Eddie, and oh boy, do I play Destiny.
Incredible news, we are truly breaking ground. This reached a point in the preparation where bringing it back for our last round was the point, and you were the one hesitating. I don't know if I want to talk about Destiny that much.
Yeah, we did a full-blown Destiny special, and then on the last episode, I ended up speaking for 20 minutes on a single Destiny track. So I was like...
But ultimately, the goal was to benefit from the fact we are just the two of us, because Galen is indeed traveling, for something that works as a back and forth on games that we played regularly. And there's only so many of them.
Yeah, I kind of had an idea of something else I could bring that I played with in my mind, but at the end of the day, it's Destiny is the game I get back to.
Yeah, it was basically like, oh yeah, I remember that. When was the last time I played it? Steam? 8 years ago. Great, I'm old.
Oh Lord.
We've all been there. But anyway, this will be a bit of a simple back and forth, not really a strong unifying theme, although I can see some bridges to be drawn between the tracks we'll bring up. But for now, start us off and take us away to the Frigid tomb.
Yep, so I promise I'll try to not bring up motifs in Destiny too much. We already did an episode on that.
I mean, if there are motifs that are involved, might as well at least mention them.
Yeah, so Frigid Tomb is one of the exploration themes that play in Beyond Light, the Beyond Light expansion for Destiny 2. And it's the entire song is pretty much a mix of the motif for the Witness with the motif for the Beyond Light expansion itself.
There's motifs in Destiny?
Oh Lord.
Okay. That was my first and last one, but you have to admit it was funny to bring it up so quickly.
I feel like me playing Destiny has become its own its own entity as a living joke at this point.
Same with me asking Galen whether or not he plays Arknights.
We need to start making fun of you playing Hoyoverse games.
Yeah, but I don't bring them up that often, actually. Which is why I'm kind of making up for it through this episode, honestly.
You are way more clever than either me or Galen on that.
It's called restraint, baby. But do go on about the motives involved in this track from Beyond Light. Bit of a medley, you said?
Yeah. Generally speaking, these exploration songs are sort of medleys, so pretty much.
So it's an exploration theme.
Yeah, it's it basically plays. So let's start from the beginning here. This expansion
By all
is
means.
set on Europa, the moon of Jupiter, I believe.
I think so, yes.
And Europa is all covered in ice and snow, just like in real life. And when you're in more, let's call it peaceful areas, like you're not engaging in combat, there are a few different, more peaceful songs that can play. And this track on the album, Frigid Tomb, is basically sort of the album arrangement of those calmer themes.
I see. So it's literally multiple tracks stapled together for once.
They tend to do that. I think with
Although for
every
this one, it didn't change so many times as much as in other tracks that we've covered before.
yeah, I think I don't usually mention it too much, but they do follow sort of the way Blizzard also does things, where the soundtracks to WoW expansions have much fewer tracks than the actual expansion had, because they stitch a lot of songs together when they're playing around the same area, if that makes sense.
That doesn't, but I understand.
Yeah, so like
No, like, I know what you mean. I just don't think that makes sense on a soundtrack point of view.
right. Destiny doesn't necessarily divide it in that way. There aren't, let's say, as aggressive as Blizzard. Blizzard aggressively just puts like 3 different songs, 4 or 5, and if you only like one of them, tough luck. You're listening to all 5 if you check that song on the album. With Destiny, Bungie doesn't go quite that far, and there are some tracks that are like just a single song on there, while there are
Crazy
other
idea.
yeah, I know, but there are other cuts from their soundtracks that have multiple songs in them, and I don't usually speak too much about that, but they do that quite often. And I guess, spoiler alert for the songs that I'm bringing up for this episode, I think only one of them isn't like that.
Yeah,
The
that
other
checks out.
ones, yeah, the other ones are exactly that. So this is the one for Europa. This is the
Yeah.
exploration theme that plays on
All
Europa.
right, so it's an exploration theme then.
Yeah, sort of peaceful exploration, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, it's peaceful, but it's active. Like, if it was a dungeon theme, but the parts between the fight, I would have fully accepted it as well. That was kind of my assumption.
It actually plays in the story as well, in the campaign,
I see.
because they usually campaign missions start for Destiny expansions start in what would be an open area, open exploration area, and then you go into an area that's exclusive to the mission.
Yeah.
So they tend to add in some elements of the more general theme for the planet, or in this case, the moon of Europa.
Yeah, and I can absolutely see that general theme being covered here. We have something that's a very, like, does the background synth that's giving the classic crystalline icy sound, but in a very controlled way that fits the sci-fi setting, because you are in the future and you've got high-tech underpants with central heating, so you are not afraid of the elements too much.
It does help that one of the playable races is literally robot people.
That would help as well.
Yeah, but
yeah, it feels like you have the freedom to explore, indeed, but also a direction. You have to do a job. And then, about halfway in, there's also the big brass that give the feeling that there's I mean, it's kind of this classic trope of a big thing encased in ice, you know?
yeah, that's
Like some sort of ancient behemoth.
That's ironically, put a pin on that idea of an ancient behemoth beneath the ice, because that's gonna come back way later on this episode. But
Excellent.
on this expansion, that specific scenario doesn't happen. But this is the expansion where you unlock the stasis subclasses, which
Mhm.
are basically ice powers, but in Destiny sci-fi-ish terms.
Of course.
And they are a darkness power, which at this point in the story was seen as still 100% evil.
Yeah,
Um,
because you still were very much on the side of light, and then you go beyond light.
yeah, pretty much. This is literally the first time the heroes use darkness powers. Not counting the multiple weapons the Guardian has created by turning a god into a weapon, which
Oh yeah, no, I'm aware that this is very much a common thing.
yeah, that's the Destiny meme. Basically, every other raid boss becomes a weapon.
Yeah.
But yeah, this going back to Frigid Tomb, but I think it does a good job at mixing the different things that are going on with Europa. Because
Yeah, it's not that jarring where it changes from one speed to another.
yeah, and there's also a lot of context here that for someone who hasn't played it, I think the fact that you're saying it goes really well is not jarring, moves from piece to piece very well. Says a lot about how they stitch the songs together. But for someone who
Exactly.
has played the soundtrack, it also has an extra layer here where you feel the different elements here. There are the synths of the witness, who's the main force of darkness in the background here. There's the choir, which kind of speaks to Europa's coldness, but also to the coldness of the Bray family and Clovis Bray, their patriarch, who plays a big part in this expansion. And
I
there's
see.
also a different kind of synth in the back sometimes, which brings to mind the Vex, which are basically a robot species that are among the Destiny Rogues gallery, let's say.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of elements playing together here to give a full picture of what you will find on Europa, which if you play Destiny you get, and if you don't play Destiny you can still appreciate the song on its own, I think.
Yeah, it's a nice one.
It's a it's a really nice balance that they've reached, in my opinion, because usually you either stray too far towards it's accessible.
Nope,
uh,
we gotta wait for this one too.
yep, I just heard it.
Me too.
Oh boy. And I lowered my mic levels.
They didn't lower the exhaust levels.
They might have raised them. Uh God
Clear mark when we're back in.
where do I need to take it back from?
Just the part about them striking a nice balance.
Right. So it strikes a nice balance with showing both the elements that are in the game that players will recognize, while also being accessible. Usually, I find at least that if a soundtrack is going for that, they are trying to essentially have their cake and eat it too. They tend to go too much to one side or the other, or either they go too much into it's accessible, but then the themes are lost, or they go too much into focusing on the themes, and then someone who doesn't play the game will just not understand the song at all and not enjoy it.
Yeah, you don't want to be generic, but you also don't want to be too inside baseball.
Yeah, that's a way of putting it. And even Bungie doesn't usually they don't always get it right, but I think they got it right on this one.
Indeed. Now, shall we move on from ice to fire?
I was gonna say, it sounds like a much warmer place that we're going to.
We are indeed going to Natlan, like literally each nation in the, well, most nations, I guess, in the world of Tevat, which is the world in which Genshin Impact is happening for now, has an element associated with them, and these themes are for Natlan, which is the nation theme after fire. That's why they had so many torches in the representation, because this is taken from a live recording of a couple of themes played by the London Philharmonic Orchestra and sung in Swahili, because if it works for Christopher Tin, it works for them.
That was literally the first line in my notes, asking what language is this in, because the phonetics make it sound like a sub-Saharan African language. That makes sense.
That it does.
This reminded me a lot of a different soundtrack. I think it's a movie, maybe it's a documentary, but I think it's a movie called The Power of One, which was by Hans Zimmer. But
not one I'm familiar with off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's not one that's very popular. I just grew up with it because my mom loved it. She loved the soundtrack specifically. She never watched the movie. But it's basically
another signs that we can have songs that work well as a standalone and don't need the full context because they're accessible.
Pretty much. But yeah, it's this sounded like a more video gamey take on the concept that Hans Zimmer was engaging with that movie score, where it's taking African, sub-Saharan African specifically, soundscapes and mixing them with a more European orchestral vibe. But this is a more video gamey version of what Hans Zimmer did there, which was a more movie version, of course.
Absolutely. Now, to go a bit broader first before narrowing it back to the song itself. So, Genshin, the first of the Hoyo games I've played, they had like 3 or 4 before, but this is the big break, even though I was aware of Honkai Impact the third, but never really played it, and Genshin Impact was the one that really broke out and left its mark in the landscape because it broke free of some of the more established rigid gacha convention of spend so many energy points to do this level so many times and get those rewards. That's very boxed in, very segregated, and has been a staple since like Puzzle and Dragons. Here it's way more open, and that's part of the strategy to kind of sell you the characters, because on another game you have your PNG of your character and you can use it in battle, but that's pretty much it. Here, even if your old favorite can do the newer content, and that's not a guarantee because it's very team-based, you can still always use them to just roam around, explore, which is something actually useful and not just activities you do to cope. Although sometimes it can reach those extremes that even has a technical term in the community. It's called resinless behavior. The resin being the name of the energy you do to do the activity that gives you your main reward, your artifacts that give you stats, your materials for weapons and the likes.
Makes sense.
But yeah, my point here is that the interconnectivity of the world is probably the game's biggest strength, which is why I wanted to bring up as a more representative track some films that are tied to one of the nations, since they are the main driving force of your character's travels across the world.
I can see that. It's it does feel like kind of like that Hans Zimmer score I mentioned. It does kind of feel like looking into this sub-Saharan ish culture as an outsider in a way.
Yeah, about that. So, this nation in question, Natlan, well, there's the part where it's a bit of an isolated culture compared to the rest of the nations, which goes completely against everything I just said, and that's part of my problem with the nation. That is my least favorite area since, like, Inazuma released 3 years ago. And part of that was that due to lore reasons, that basically meant that people from this nation couldn't really live it with their memories intact. We knew very little about it, and there is very little interplay and interconnectivity to it. And this meant that they had a story that was more isolated and kind of made during its main course, like most of what we've done so far, kind of temporarily irrelevant. And that's a big loss. It also doesn't help that when it comes to just vibes, there's also this weird clash because the game is more medieval fantastic, of course, but you go to Natlan and there's one of the main characters that has a motorbike that's on fire. You have someone that's just going around in roller skate. One of the first things you see on the first city you go in are street artists and breakdancers. So it's a bit of a weird vibe.
What I got from that is that Natlan is basically fire themed Wakanda, but with Black American culture.
Yes, but also, and so would it then surprise you to say that the main visual motifs for a lot of the character are actually South American? And yes, from that you may understand that the fact that this one nation has motifs from across 4 different continents, I believe there's a bit of Australia in there for good measure, and you can probably kind of see the problem. It's a bit of a hot pot where there's too many ingredients.
I think I'm not as surprised as I should be because the name seems like it could come from Nahuatl, which is the language of the Aztec people, and I did hear the pan flutes and steel drums.
Yeah, especially in the second part of the track, because that live performance had 2 different tracks, one which is kind of the main theme for the nation that plays at a story moment, and the other that plays during regular battle in the overworld.
Makes sense. Yeah, like Anthem of the Savannah with pan flutes, sure.
Exactly.
Whatever.
Yep. That's Natlan.
Yeah, it's
and like on a thematic level, it really doesn't work for me, especially since the storyline is the most shonen anime kind of over-the-top stupid stuff they could have made. But when it comes to the fun of actually exploring the area and actually, for that matter, enjoying the music, they still have some great stuff on their hands.
Yeah, it's the second song in particular, Anthem of the Savannah,
Yeah.
it does feel to me very stereotypically African, like
Yes.
to the point of Orientalism. But as long as you are okay acknowledging that, it does sound nice.
Yeah, like they kind of have to signpost their stuff. These woods sure have more of an important landmark if they had the focus in the design of the nation as a whole, but it's nice that they at least don't hop from too many different points, pan fruits notwithstanding, during one and the same soundtrack.
Right. And it's not like they're like making the soundtrack to a civilization game where they're meant to sound like that culture is meant to be.
Yeah, exactly. That's meant to represent a part of the world and not the whole world. It's just that this part of the world has like sub-Saharan culture and also South American culture and also Central American culture and also North American culture and also Pacific Islands cultures.
Right. It's a fantastical world. You can kind of get away a little bit with Orientalism in fantasy, in my opinion.
They could not. They wanted to get away with it, but in my opinion, the source didn't take. But we are at a close for this nation. Actually, we are currently in the summer event that's kind of ending the current nation and serving as a prelude for what's to come next. And this summer event was kind of cute. And unlike the previous year's summer event, the area this is happening is actually permanent and you can come back to it anytime you want.
That's neat.
Yeah, because... And that's why you'd think I'd put a song from there as a result, and they're fine songs. But in spite of the fact that we have this area we can return to at any time, I am still frustrated by the fact that some of the previous areas, which were some of the greatest pieces of exploration that were in the game, are not accessible anymore. Even more so that some of the music from there, including the next track, Mittelsom and Nacht Fantasy, isn't accessible anymore in-game.
That sucks. I mean, I know that feeling from Destiny.
Oh.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's why I wanted to pick the Midsummer Nacht Fantasy. But sorry, I mispronounced it the first time.
I mean,
yeah.
You talk like I am from Germany. I am the last person who's gonna criticize on your pronunciation, even though I probably should be able to, because my DNA is 100% German, as it turns out.
Well, turns out language is not stored in the DNA.
That we can confirm.
But I still try to pronounce things as correctly as I can. It's a bit of respect to try and do your best in the moment, at least.
That is entirely fair.
Yeah. But anyway, this... Now, I did say this came for a summer event, and you might logically retort that this doesn't sound very summer-like. It doesn't. But that's because on that year's event, what happened is that the four main visiting characters kind of had parts of the archipelago shaped after their own internal selves and desires. And one of those characters is named Fischl, and she is an adventurer, which is also themed after one of those anime tropes named Chunibyo, which means that she is basically in edgy roleplay mode at all times.
Uh-huh.
Because when she was younger, she kind of coped with difficult situation by reading a certain book so much she projected herself as this character. Like, Fischl isn't even her real name, but she coped with that, and these internal troubles and this duality came out in what turns out to be a gigantic dark and purple baroque castle in the middle of the island, which is where whenever you get into a fight, this theme plays. And this is one of the best themes in the game, in my opinion.
The fact that it plays in fights explains the electric guitars.
Exactly.
I was a bit confused about those.
Well, there's that, and there's also the fact that Fischl is an electric elemental character.
Okay.
Even though technically the one hard rock music player is fire elemental and not electric elemental, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, it's. I'm still not sure how much I like the electric guitars personally, which is weird because usually I'm the one asking for more guitars in the songs we talk about.
Yeah.
But here, I don't know. I kind of enjoy the fantasy vibe. Like,
yeah, it's basically the character being the Lulu and fighting the opposition because it's the cool thing to do at the moment.
Yeah. Now,
it's got that baroque start that kind of take a time to really get going, but when it gets going, it's very much firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, I correct me if you know whether I'm wrong or not, but based on my superficial knowledge of German, I believe the title translates to the fantasy of Midsummer's Night or something like that.
You are correct.
So like with a title like that and the very baroque intro, I kind of enjoy the baroque with these acoustic guitar vibes a little bit more than the electric part. It kind of sounded like the acoustic guitar in particular sounded a bit like Romani.
Yeah.
So it sort of felt like a little bit of Romani culture in, let's say, medieval Germany.
I guess that would be the more adventurous aspect to it all.
Yeah, which I'm still on the fence about the electric guitars. I think I would have enjoyed the song more if it was fully dedicated to that vibe of like a Romani character in the middle of the Holy Roman Empire or something like that vibe.
I see. Yeah, I guess, but at the same time, like, this duality is very much the point, I feel. Like, this would be a case where this would make the track more accessible, but it would make less sense for people invested in the game. So we're back to kind of this notion of approachability versus fan service, kinda, and this one is leaning more towards the latter. See, we are drawing links between our songs. Isn't that great?
That's lovely.
Indeed. Speaking of lovely, like I said, we are approaching the end of the Natlan arc, which means that the next nation we come was supposed to be Snezhnaya, which is basically the ice elemental Russian nation, but Hoyo realized somewhere around the way that the player base was not really that tuned into the lore and thus had no clear idea of the stakes at large, and so they gave themselves an extra year to kind of make a chaos arc with people from different nations assembling around essentially the outskirts of that nation, but not going fully into it, and this is where we are going to for next year. For next month, in fact, in a place called Natlan. And the songs aren't out yet, the region's not out yet, but there is beta access for some people, there is data mining. I did take a little peek, and I obviously won't go that much into it because it's very much spoilers. But one aspect that I could not mention in the less than a minute I had, there's bagpipes. So I'm on board, 10 out of 10, perfect region. Next!
Oh boy. On our ping pong game, we're back to Destiny.
And we go from darkness to light.
In the song as well, in fact. The song kind of tells a story a little bit.
I know, I am aware of what Lucent means.
So the song is Lucent World, is from The Witch Queen. It's also one of the exploration themes, so it has a couple of different tracks together. This is kind of me correcting a mistake of my own in our Destiny motifs special, because you might remember that I think Galen was the one who mentioned that the song "The Witch Queen," which I brought into that playlist, felt like it was just the motif to the Witch Queen but louder. And I mentioned that maybe it could have been better if I brought more examples from the Witch Queen expansion, because the entire expansion was us exploring the mind of the Witch Queen, and so there were a lot of different usages of her motif. So this is one of them.
Wonderful.
Yeah, this if you pay attention to the vocals, especially, you might notice that the vocals start with the witnesses motif, the darkness motif, in other words, and immediately goes into the Witch Queen motif.
Oh, I did not notice it. That's nice.
And that alone kind of tells a story, because I won't bore you with the more esoteric details of Destiny lore, which it can go very strange if I were to go there.
I'm certain.
But to keep a long story short, the Witch Queen, or Salvatori as her name is, she used to be a follower of the Witness in centuries past, to the point she kind of helped the apocalyptic event in the backstory of Destiny, because Destiny is technically post-apocalyptic. Later, it would be revealed that she was also the one who stopped that apocalypse from completely eradicating Earth, but that's a different story. That's from a different expansion as well.
Nice.
But either way, she starts as a darkness follower. She develops a fascination with the Traveler, which is the big white. Yeah, the Traveler is the big white sphere that's sort of the symbol of the franchise.
With the Witness being the big black triangle. Well, pyramid.
Well, the one who pilots the pyramids, but yeah.
Yeah.
And the Traveler gives light. It's where ghosts come from, and the ghosts are the source of the light for the Guardians, right?
Of course.
So Salvatori goes from a follower of the big bad guy who uses darkness to becoming very interested in the light, to the point she sabotages the plan for the final shape when it was supposed to happen centuries in the past.
Yeah.
Which is why the universe is still alive. And then eventually, in one of the seasons for the Beyond Light expansion, she dies as her plan is thwarted by the allies of the Guardian. And in the Witch Queen expansion, we discovered that she's been risen as a wielder of the light, the first non-human to be raised as a light bearer. So
good for her.
Yeah, she's still kind of a douche because she still is the god of schemes.
I mean, that would be a bit sad if she stopped, right?
Yeah, thankfully Bungie doesn't do the hyperabundance of redemption arcs that Blizzard does. Savathun is kind of what if Sylvanas Windrunner was actually well written.
And also a moth.
But yeah,
when it comes to the song, the deep droning sound in the background against those bright chimes and other luminous bits are such a nice contrast. The notion of contrast was right there in my notes, and there's a good reason for that. It's very much the intention now, I know, and that's pretty cool. Also, the choir, it's haunting but not oppressive as well. It finds a really nice balance. I'm into it.
Yeah, I would describe the choir as regal, but not holy, which I think is a very good way to describe Savathun as a character as well, because once she becomes a light bearer, once she gets risen in this expansion, she starts she sprouts a halo of bones, a crown.
As one does.
Yeah, like she had some, like, a couple spikes on her head before, but after being risen under the light, those spikes kind of look more like a crown with a halo on top of it.
Yeah.
So she looks...
That's just nice for the cool factor.
Not just that, but also that's kind of the character. She is the Witch Queen, and she does see herself as a king or queen would see themselves, like higher and mightier than others, but she doesn't necessarily... She isn't holier than others, and she knows she isn't holier than others. She is the god of schemes. So I think it's, again, a nice balance. I guess what I'm trying to say is Bungie's composers are great at balancing things. And also, I really like how this track gives off alien world vibes, but doesn't go all zany and bizarre on the soundscape just to show off. It's alien. Like, there are chimes.
No, it's very composed.
Yeah,
it's
like
very...
At most, there's the chimes, but it doesn't go overboard with it. But it still gives off alien vibes, and that's in fact a very good thing, because the very start of the song plays every time you load into a zone that is in her world. So you hear that starting bit a lot.
I see. So that's an exploration theme as well, Van.
Yeah, it's one of the open world themes for Savathun's world.
Yeah, that's nice. I assume especially the choir part helps make it like clear that it's her domain. You're just stepping in it.
Yeah, the expansion did a really good job, both on the soundtrack and in game, at making sure you are not invited to this party, but you are crashing it.
Excellent.
In fact, just not to go too off topic, but the Witch Queen expansion starts with you basically stealing a cannon off one of your ally species, just so you can get shot into Savathun's mothership, where there's a portal to her throne world. So you literally are crashing in.
Excellent. That's a nice way to make a dynamic entry.
From a regal theme to cowboy chivalry? Something?
A bit of both, in fact. Let's talk about Honkai Star Rail now. As a gacha game where you are pulling, among other things, for the characters that you play, one of the strengths they have to cultivate across the Hoyo games is, of course, characterization. So I wanted to start with something a bit nice, a bit cute that they did for a big concert they had back in May of this year. They took like 4 different songs, 2 from in-game encounters and 2 from character trailers for 2 of the characters, and kind of mashed them together in this really cute little arrangement. It starts with I believe, boss theme when you are actually fighting against Argenti. Then there's the trailer theme. Then there's the main character theme for Boot Hill, then part of his trailer as well, and a new arrangement of the 2 of them with the instruments of Argenti, the fancy violins and the likes, going against the heavy cowboy guitars of Boot Hill. And it's nice to have those 2 characters that didn't release together. In fact, I think they released like a year apart one from another. But to have them mashed together because they have been associated as of late. And Argenti is a character that gets very attached very easily. He's a knight of beauty, a knight errant who seeks to embody grace and beauty in his search of the lost Eon of beauty, Idrila. And Boot Hill, meanwhile, is a space cowboy that's part of the Galaxy Rangers and that was hunting for a corporate executive. And somehow they got to collaborate and got quite fond of each other. This one is for the shippers, is what I'm saying.
That sure sounds like it. I don't know how I got all that information you just told me, but I think I understood it.
Excellent, because this is going to get way more elaborate pretty soon. So I wanted to start with something pretty simple. And, oh yeah, also I can't not mention the fun fact about Boot Hill in particular. So he's a cyborg, right?
Okay.
Yeah, he's a cyborg. I should have mentioned that. But this comes with some strings attached. Namely that he would like to swear like a trucker, but this is a PG-13 game, and they handled it in-universe by having the programs loaded on his body live censor him, so that every time he's trying to swear, he's saying something much milder instead. So he's podcast safe as well. But that's
cute.
not the really fun part. It's cute, but it's not the really fun part. The fun part is that this is a localization edition. In other languages, they handle it differently. In Japanese, instead of changing his swears to something much milder and very child-friendly, what he does is that he completely censors the swears and just say "yeehaw" instead.
That sounds about right.
So they're having fun with a lot of the characters, and this kind of reflects one of the strengths of Star Rail comparing to the other games. They are in space, but in a setting that allows for knights and cowboys to coexist without any problems. Somebody with a baseball bat can do just as much damage in setting of someone with a space laser, and they're having fun with that.
I would just note that any Destiny fan listening to this is gonna listen to your description of Honkai Star Rail and go, wait, that's Destiny.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of why I felt that these 2 games transition pretty naturally from each other. Especially given that I am now going to go into the other song I brought up and go a bit into the lore. that's involved in it, because that's something that's on the current arc of Amphorius.
Okay, I'm listening.
So, and I'm going to go in as quickly as possible through the little text that I prepared, because if I try to get it off the top of my head, we would be there for hours. So, eons are space god, more or less ideas incarnate. They come into being and can only ever be endangered if other eons end them, or if their concept becomes absorbed in another path. A path is an eon's philosophy. One of the eons, that of the erudition, is named Nous. It's a big machine that calculated everything, and thus it ensures that the universe is not only known, but predetermined, because it can be calculated. It has this notion of certainty to it, along with notions of knowledge. The main faction related to Nous is the Genius Society, a select few members that got so smart and made such big universal breakthrough they invited directly the Eon's gaze upon them. The very first genius that was part of the Genius Society is named Zandar Wan Kuwabara, and he's the one that created Nous, in fact. Now, among geniuses, another genius of note is number 27, Emperor Robert I, who calculated the purpose of life, a calculation that, through little quirk of fate, became known as the anti-organic equation. Basically, it's some sort of algorithmic truth that can infect even low-powered machines like a toaster and make them want to kill you. Now, that was long ago, and he has been assassinated by Genius Society number 4, by Genius Society member number 4, Polka Kakamond. But the equation is not easily dismissed. Eventually another guy made an array of planet-sized supercomputers to try and figure out everything, and inherited, by doing that, the memories of Emperor Robert I, which included the equation. He became Genius Society member number 66, Emperor Robert II, and those planet-sized supercomputers are called scepters. Turns out, the uncharted world known as Amphorius, where we are currently, is the first scepter that was observed, noticed, and eventually guided by Genius Society member number 1, Zandar Wan Kuwabara, going under the pseudonym of Lycurgus, or Lycus, both work, and it's stimulating a world under controlled parameters again and again until they get the result they want, which is to resurrect the anti-organic equation and use it to destroy his very creation, because if the universe is known, there cannot be true new discoveries. And basically his progress bar is at 99.99%. The only possible obstacle in his plan is that there is a bug that entered the calculation process, and that bug, that unknown factor that's messing things up, is the protagonist, who came there to refuel the train, because the train runs on the sense of discovery, and this world, given that it's a bit recent and isolated, hidden by the veil of memories, it's another complicated side story, but it was so hidden that it wasn't part of the original silver rail that the Aeon of Trailblaze made to chart the universe and make it traversable. Anyway, they got stuck there, and they got stuck for a long time because in order to calculate faster, the simulation runs at a faster speed than the universe outside. So we eventually come to this battle after multiple, in fact, entire cycles, and the stakes are to change the fundamental parameters of the situation so that it doesn't try to end all life in the universe by recreating the world through a healthy mix of memories and possibly lies. This is still fan theory at this point. They want to give the simulated world tangibility, because the power of imagination and creation are very similar in the setting, and of course Lygus can stop our character and because it's still the simulation he oversees, and he projects himself into it from outside. And even though he can be defeated, and this is what happens at the end of this fight, he can just respawn whenever he wants, because he is pretty much the one not in charge of the world. That's a segregated function, but he can very much take over them and go around them. Except that you are not alone in there. You also have, inside, yes, you are alone, but outside of that whole situation, you also have allies such as Genius Society member number 76, Scrollum, and Genius Society member number 84, Herta, who together manage in accelerated way to figure out a way to counter his authority inside by using the fact that its consciousness exists at two different speeds to turn it against him by spamming the moment of his defeat again and again like a proper spam mail in order to force him to disengage from his accelerated existence and come with them to the negotiation table. So yes, the Star Rail lore also goes crazy.
I have two things to say. Number one is, you should have seen my face while we were explaining all that. And,
was it confused, dumbfounded?
A little bit of both, but mostly it ties to the second thing I want to bring up, which is,
yes,
that sounds like basically, what if we took the Destiny concepts of the 9 plus the Vex plus Hive Magic, put them all together, and presented it in a shonen format?
Yeah, kinda.
It's like, I won't go into the Destiny lore, it's way too complicated, but the short version
you
is...
don't say.
The short version of these three concepts I just brought up is, the 9 can see past and future all the time. They see time as a circle, and they live in that circle.
We don't quite have that, because time is a circle within this world, because it's a situation that repeats itself, but outside there is in fact not only a finality, there is in fact an aeon. Well, there is an aeon of finality, and it experiences time in reverse, which means that its finality is at the start of the universe, and it has the end, which also ties into that factor of predetermination.
Yeah, the 9 are basically the consciousness tied to planets, so the member of the 9 that's tied to the Earth relives the moment where the moon was formed forever and ever and ever, because it lives its entire life all the time.
Well, and I'm sure this repeated existence is making them not cranky at all.
Oh no, they're the presumed main antagonist of the Fate saga.
Excellent.
Another of the concepts I brought up earlier was the Vex. They are a robotic species who can take over planets to turn them into big computers, and they simulate different timelines, entire timelines, and they can bring things from one timeline to another.
I see.
And the third thing I brought up was Hive Magic, which you might wonder, what does magic have to do with this entirely mathematical thing?
Absolutely not. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, well, their language has a word that they pronounce ayat in Destiny, and the word itself is said to be like a mathematical proof that whatever you just said was in fact the truth. So you can basically make anything into the truth through a word that is a mathematical equation that changes the universe.
That's cool.
So you can see you can see why I said that.
To tie it back, to give you an idea of how close this is in that vibe, the Genius Society member number 83 that I mentioned, Herta, one of the first characters you meet by proxy, and when her true appearance was revealed, turns out she doesn't look like a scientist at all. She has a witch hat. Because right. Science is magic. Prove otherwise, I dare you.
Yeah, the biggest lesson I got from this is that one of these days I should give you to a big lesson in Destiny lore, and Galen will probably be confused, while you probably will go, wait, that's Honkai Star Rail.
Nah. Inspiration wells are vast, plentiful, and many can take from it and make their own spins. That's what's fun about spinning off a genre, you know? Anyway, now that this context has been provided, for the music itself, basically, that's the boss battle theme, and there's two phases in it. There's the main theme, name equals Mythos, which happens when he's in his normal, let's call it the genius form, and when the theme goes darker and kind of subdued, that's the part named name equal logos, where he is more directly invoking the anti-organic equation and the forces of destruction instead of erudition. And the music's great as far as I'm concerned. It's got a nice, powerful beat to it. It's very bright, nice and techy, but with aspects of the epic within, because it is, after all, still happening at the depths of a Greek epic-themed world. And I always love a bit of a modular theme that goes from one phase to another, so I'm into it. And especially since the darker part has this kind of dull thumping things and it doesn't really escalate or anything, it kind of makes you want to do what you're supposed to do in your strategy, which is to exit this state as soon as possible by basically knocking off ads.
Okay, I can see that. I'm mostly still reeling from the lore explanation, but yeah, no, I kind of dig the mix of sort of dance music with strings. I think that makes a really cool soundscape.
Yeah, because it's technological, but also there's this aspect of the setting we are in, which is Greek classical, and they found a nice way to balance things out.
That's kind of gonna be the theme of the episode, isn't it?
I mean, that's certainly one of them. Well, I guess one of the elements that justifies this balance is that these Your Game Like Mine are live service game that have a steady pace of updates and keep adding content in order to renew themselves. So to make interesting acts that keep the player engaged, they have to intersect a lot of things, which can be pretty chaotic if it's not managed at its best. So the fact that there's intersections and a need to balance them against each other makes sense within the structure of a game that keeps adding new stuff and renewing itself like that.
Oh boy.
What? Not convinced?
It's not that I'm not convinced, it's that you just said that live service games need to balance the storytelling and make sure they deliver and all that. Right before we are about to talk about Destiny's most perhaps infamous expansion, Lightfall.
Well, take us there.
Yeah, this is the one that they rushed because they realized they had things to explain first before giving the finale to the saga.
Exactly like what I mentioned with Not Craven.
Yeah, pretty much. And the song I have here, All That Matters, is in fact a song that plays in the Season of Defiance, which was the first season that came with the Lightfall expansion.
Now it plays in this season, but in what context does this play? I'm assuming story moment.
Before I go there, I do want to just add an extra note to the topic of properly spacing out content and planning things.
Go ahead.
Destiny right now isn't, at least according to Bungie, they aren't gonna do seasonal storytelling anymore. It's just expansions, but it will be at least 2 expansions per year. But it used to be that they would have 3 to 4 seasons every year, and each season would have its story. And Season of Defiance was the first season that came with Lightfall, which means that it fell into a, I'd say, trap that Bungie kind of made for themselves, where you spend so much time writing the story of the big expansion pack that you're dropping that the season that comes along with it ends up being lackluster.
I see.
This was Lightfall was an expansion that not very many people enjoyed. Like, gameplay was fun, but the story was hard to follow at best. And Season of Defiance, being the first season of the Lightfall year, was very bare bones, so that didn't help for people who wanted a better plot.
Yeah.
So, better live service games and managing their storytelling, huh?
Believe it or not, this won't even be the last time we talk about that exact kind of scenario.
Oh boy. But yeah, All That Matters, if memory serves, it plays in 2 places, but the second time it plays, it's only the latter half of the song that's more melancholic. I believe this is one of those things where I mentioned there being areas that we can't go back to in Destiny. Seasonal content can't be revisited once the year is over, so we can't revisit this storyline.
I see.
If my memory serves well, this plays on an area called The Farm, which was also used in the vanilla campaign for Destiny 2, which also you cannot play anymore. The Farm is basically a place where allies of the Guardians live, and in the vanilla campaign, you would go there for refuge once you lost your light for a while.
So that's why we are in what my notes have described as the big sads.
In this case, it's a bit more than that. It starts off already a little bit melancholic because it's the farm, and the farm has always had that vibe in Destiny. Though in this specific scenario, I suppose we kind of lost. This is when the witness wins right before we find a way to follow the witness and actually finish it before it finishes its plan for ending the universe. So it is a bit of a downer in the story here as well, just not quite as much. But in this season, a beloved character dies as well. So that's why it's
that's
big
the
sad.
kind of theme that makes sense for that.
Yeah, that's where the big sad vibes of the second half of the song come from.
Also, another thing I've noted is that it feels detached from the rest of the setting. Like, it's piano and strings, but not much else. No electronic shenanigans, no part of it that covers the futuristic aspects of of this game, especially for the Lightfall expansion, which, if I remember, had quite a funky soundtrack.
Yeah, Lightfall itself was set in a very futuristic city in Neptune, but the seasons don't. They usually don't happen at the same place as the actual expansion. Well, they're
to go back to places you've already visited, keep the world alive, and the likes.
Or sometimes introduce a place momentarily. And the Season of Defiance was set on Earth, fighting against the forces of the Witness as they try to stop us from going into a portal to whatever happens in the final shape. As a season, it was more grounded, at least to a point. Your hub for the season was this farm area, which is pretty much what you would imagine as a farmstead. Just like, since it's post-apocalyptic, the place is a bit rundown, or
of course,
very rundown, I should say. The missions were more futuristic. They took place in ships of the Witness forces, but the actual story...
Yeah, but you do your mission and you return to the farm.
Pretty much. Or to areas around it on Earth.
Of course.
So that's why it sounds a bit more grounded, I think. It also... The piano sounds more Halo-y to me than most of Destiny's soundtrack.
Really?
Both Halo and Destiny go for a sort of soap opera vibe, but usually Destiny follows a different soundscape.
I think you mean space opera and not soap opera.
Did I say soap opera? I
you
meant
did
space
say soap opera.
Lord, my brain is frying. Yeah, no, I meant space opera. Both Halo and Destiny go for a space opera vibe, but...
John Halo, you're never gonna guess what's happening today. Is it the Covenant again? Oh.
I don't watch enough soap operas to understand anything of that. But anyway...
it's okay.
They go through different ways when it comes to the soundscape for their space operas, but sometimes they kind of meet, and I think this is a song where the two soundscapes meet a little bit. This feels sort of in the Halo sphere of influence, let's say. But yeah, it's it does indeed fit the description you gave of the big sad. It is.
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, it's meant to convey an emotion, and it conveys that emotion. Job's done.
Yeah, I think most fans would say that it wasn't very well executed because it was a bit rushed. But there was the intent. It was a character that the fans enjoyed, and she dies. And so, all the sad. And what kind of made it even more tragic, let's say, is that Lance Reddick died at around this time in the real world.
Why?
And he voices Zavala, who is basically the leader of the good guys. And the exact week after Lance Reddick passed away, you are met with a cutscene in game where his character, still voiced by him, is mourning the death of the character from this season. And he's basically...
Digital ghosts are weird, aren't they?
Everyone felt like crap playing through that. It was heavy. The timing of it was god awful.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty rude of him to die at that point.
I am not gonna touch that one.
Yeah. That checks out.
But yeah, it's a very tragic moment in time,
Yeah.
but also very beautiful song, I'd say. Tragic but beautiful song. Um, which is fitting. Though Lance Reddick will be remembered by Destiny players for better moments than this moment in the franchise.
Well, of course.
But now for something completely different.
Yeah, for that point, we're certainly going for a bit of a tonal shift, especially with the first track. Now, we are going into the Zenless Zone Zero part, and it is currently my favorite of the selection, for reasons that are opposites kind of to what I enjoy about Star Rail and what you seem to enjoy about Destiny, which is the vastness of the stakes. This one, its specialty, its part that makes it stand out is the opposite, that the stakes are a bit more reachable, it's more composed, more human. Like, a fan theory for Honkai Star Rail is, what if the 10 stone hearts of the Interstellar Peace Corporation are secretly followers not of Klippo, the Amber Law of Preservation, but of Taizironth, the propagation sealed within? A fan theory for Zenless Zone Zero is like, hey, that girl's intonation seems very deliberate. Are her hair ornaments cochlear implants? And so there's a groundedness that makes things much more appreciable and much more accessible. So with that in mind, let's talk about one of my favorite characters for the game, because, again, characterization is important. So, later, the first song, TKO, it's from his trailer. It's mainly because I wanted to catch up with his themes for the episode, and I couldn't not include the big screamo metal short tracks. I respect you as a metal enjoyer.
Yeah, my notes on this are basically, this is metalcore, I can dig it, and I wish there was a full version of this anywhere.
Maybe there is. I haven't really dug that deep, but yeah, it's enjoyable. It does the job on a very surface level. He's the champion of the Sons of Caledon, which are basically the ruler of Mad Max outer sector of the world that remains after a kind of apocalypse people are pretty chill about overall. And his job is punching people for his boss's sake, so she has time to file her taxes.
Okay.
So, yeah. So he's the punchy guy. But you dig deeper in the surface and you go to his EP, Fearless. Same singer as the Battle Tower track from last episode, YMIR. And yeah, that's a dance song with dance visuals as well that convey quite a story. It's got the fightiness, it's got the training arc. It starts with its previous role as a leader of a mercenary group that eventually died because of a mistake he made. So what he did was to take a huge amount of money in a loan to support and give severance pay to the family of the people he accidentally caused the death of, and support their families. But he couldn't repay the loan and never really intended to, and so was entered into underground fighting arenas where it turned out he was very, very good at it. But that's the extra bit of the stakes. And what I really love in the music video in particular is that at the side of this whole fighting situation, there's also the part they take time to show that he also quit smoking during that time, which is immediately much more humanizing, because that's... And the part where where in the song lyrics there's literally his self-doubt that chimes up at a point, it's things that are very approachable and themes that are very explicit in order to go at the broader theme that as a fighter, he's not just cool because he punches people hard, but also because he can kind of win those fights against his worst self and get those wins that matter more than any individual bout like that. And that's why he's the champion. That's why he was eventually, in fact, found by the Sons of Caledon and took the title of the Red Scarf and got this role as a champion and reconnected, rebuilt himself, standing back up after what was almost a KO. That's the relatable part, which has those 2 layers on it, and I just love that.
I can get behind that. In fact, you mentioned how the things that attract us to games like Destiny and Honkai Star Rail is the fact that they're larger than life. Yeah. The latest Destiny expansion actually added a character. His role is meant to be sort of larger than life because he's our point of communication with the Nine. But he's brought into what for Destiny is the present, but it's hundreds of years in our future. And this guy is from the 60s. So it's the first character that actually behaves like we do in real life. And
that's a cool way to kind of bring back a contrast of what you're doing in this setting against what feels more mundane and in this setting becomes exotic.
Yeah, he does have some moments still, especially when because he's sort of a secret agent of sorts, like the Men in Black, let's say.
Yeah.
So kind of that sort of character. That was his life in the 60s. So he has some moments where he's playing that secret agent thing, but it doesn't last too long. Most of the time it's just really fun seeing a very human and realistic reaction to the insane things that we say on the regular.
Yeah. A bit of a different perspective.
And also hilarious.
I like it.
And sometimes tragic. Like there's a very tragic scene where he learns about the collapse and how we live in a post-apocalyptic society. And he asks why there are no records of it and how come we don't know the year it happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the grounding elements are always very, very welcome.
Yeah, exactly. Especially for humanizing grounding aspect that happens even with characters that can be pretty extra at times, like Miyabir, for instance, another character in Zenless, is this noble hair with a cursed blade that's a void hunter, but also she's extremely insecure about her height and makes a point to take into account the length of her animal ears within her height because she's insecure about that, to the point that her height, ears included, is her online handle when you meet her at the arcade. Later, to go back to him, despite being this fighter, is also homophobic with an E. He faints at the sight of blood, which is actually why he wears sunglasses even indoors. It's not just to look cool, it's because it taints people so that if there's a small splash of blood somewhere, he doesn't immediately get knocked out cold.
I haven't been saying much because the bikers are presumably going to work as delivery men. It's 6 p.m. here.
Yep, I heard that.
Yeah, some of them are peaking. Some of them are peaking higher than me on Audacity sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's going back in.
Yeah.
That's an interesting concept for a fighting not a fighting game character, but a fighting character.
I mean, you say not a fighting game character, but literally one of the first things they did right after launch, ZZZ that is, was to have a video of a game design discussion with the team at Capcom that worked on Street Fighter 6. There's a lot of fighting game influence, to the point where some even stages during some of the temporary event are made in a forced 2D perspective to give more of a beat-em-up feel. They know their references and they wear them on their sleeve. And the fact that this is a different world of references than the more connected world of Honkai Impact and the Star Rail and Honkai the Third and Genshin, of course, means that even though it's ultimately the same company, it feels very fresh compared to the other games. If you're a bit annoyed because there's this exact character archetype that already showed up 3 times and there's another character that, I'm a tall big-boobied lady with purple hair that looks cold outside but actually warms up after a while. That's not something you're going to find here currently, and that's something that I really appreciate.
I don't know enough about ZZZ to comment on that, but it does sound like they do characters in a very interesting way. It's from what you are saying, it almost sounds slice of life-esque, but with more action.
No, there's definitely that. Like, some of the events, there's a bit of a beat them up. Some others, it's literally just taking characters to watch a movie together, or picking up a side job because the AI that squats your home computer is making your electricity bills rise. So there's always this insetting fantasy aspect, but it most often drags it back to something that's relatable and modern and that feels approachable. Which is why it was so annoying when last patch the game, in my opinion and that of a fair amount of people, if there is as well, kind of stumbled, at least on the western side of the community. I don't know what happened on the home markets when it came to the reception of patch 2.0, but as far as I'm concerned, the stakes were unbalanced, the narrative was completely uprooted, and given that it had this nice homely feeling before, it felt wrong. It felt like it gave up what made the game cool. But then there's the next patch, and we are kind of returning to the action, reconnecting a little, and it's almost like it's repeating the narrative from the later MV of just rising back up after a KO instead of letting it knock you down.
The only thing I have to say about that concept is I'm praying that's what happens to Destiny.
That would be nice, and I really hope it for you.
Yeah, the story is great, but the game isn't in a good place right now. Don't go on YouTube looking for Destiny 2, people. It's place is toxic right now.
I had no intention to do that. Thank you very much. There is enough opinions daily we are subjected to.
Yep, that sums it up.
Yeah. Now then, moving on to the last bit of Zenless soundtrack. This one is part of the more recent patch where the story is again more approachable, where you meet characters that feel more like people, relatable people, and even those that were introduced the patch prior, instead of being completely moved to the side so that we pretend they didn't exist and moving on, they are still used and they are still an important part of the story, but much better used with Yuan, the main driver, and your master in trying to understand and control the abilities you have due to your ocular implants, is less of a character that's the driving force and kind of taking over the plot completely for herself, and more what she works way better as, which is the cavalry, coming up and finding ways to fend off against the boss this is a theme of, which is a result of a greedy executive middle management of a local advanced materials company messing up and letting a cult get their facility taken over by this monster that's not only very angry but also atypically able to heal itself, which is very convenient for making a first fight unwinnable. And that ties in naturally to the song, where it starts and it's got this slasher movie vibe, kind of.
I was gonna say this song and the video you shared, they don't feel as grounded as everything else you just said about the game.
Yeah, that's because, like, okay, so in Zenless Zone Zero, you have the hollows, which are essentially black holes that happen in the middle of, like, anywhere they form. It's a bit more complicated than that, but whatever. They look like black holes from the outside, but they can actually be entered, and inside is a constantly self-rearranging version of what was taken over, with monster inside and all that, which serve as a way to differentiate between the battle zones and the slice of life just chilling around zones.
Okay.
And so, yeah, this is just like a company that needed to have these facilities operating from inside one of those hollows in order to produce the material, which is called Porcelain. The company is named Porcelain X, and it's a material that can resist better the corruptive influence of the hollow, and thus helps with the mining operation in there and all that. But cults and influence and those cults want to accelerate the problem of the hollows rather than fight back against it, which would feel silly if you're not following some news. But also some people really want really like taking the worst option possible at every turn, don't they?
I will invoke my constitutional right to silence.
As you wish. But moving back to the song then, starts with these haunting wails and these deep booming sounds that make the threat looming, but eventually it accelerates into a more present thumping, and it's already pretty intense at this point. You're already fighting out, but it's more of a desperate fight, and then you have the discordant piano, which marks the transition. The BPM outright changes because things are chaotic, and we get to the part where we fight back with the guitars that go crazy. It's dirty and messy, but it's fast, and it's everything I love in a track, unsurprisingly.
Yeah, I don't know if Galen's gonna agree with my take, but this feels like some instrumental symphonic black metal stuff. And
I see.
Black metal is known for being very high BPM and sounding very chaotic, so that tracks.
Yeah, and they're really playing around with it, knocking you off balance at times almost. But still keeps the tone, still keep the vibe, and Almost makes me regret beating the boss too fast, you know?
It's an interesting song. I I don't think it's gonna surprise anyone if I say that I preferred the metal bits over the rest of the song. But yeah, I think when it's going for the more horror adjacent vibes, like
Yeah.
the discordant piano, the horror strings, that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
it kind of feels a little bit by the numbers. Like, okay,
Yeah, I can
we
see
have
that.
a
I can
horror
see that.
we have a horror villain. What does a horror villain thing need? It needs horror strings. It needs a discord. It's kind of the elements that you hear for pretty much every horror villain out
I mean,
there.
it works.
It does, but it also makes it less special than the rest of the song for me. I think
Yeah.
the fact that
Which
they
is why I
went,
appreciate that there's kind of those two have. Like, here's the threat, and here's this threat, kind of.
yeah, I kind of get that, but I do vastly prefer when it's going into black metal territory.
Oh, yeah. Me too. Like, the
It,
build up is nice, but it goes places, and I like those places.
and it's not like they're just doing black metal because black metal or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
they are trying. They are doing some interesting
Yeah,
things.
no, it also fits the pace of the fight where it's mostly very fast, you need to counter a lot. It's made to favor characters that have not only the standard array of character switching parries and dodges, but also inherent parries in order to be able to really handle the assault and the special phase, which has a very involved mechanic that are pretty cool to follow through. It's a great fight too, that helps.
I'm sure it's not the case, but I kind of picture now in my head the hilarious image of someone having to parry to the beat of the song when the song has a double pedal going on, a blast pedal going on.
Yeah, no, that's not the case. There are some rhythm mini games, but this is not one of them.
It would be hilarious to see someone playing something like that, though.
Indeed.
Wouldn't be hilarious to play something like that?
Speak for yourself. I revel in the challenge.
Ranaka master of rhythm games, I suppose.
Amateur at best. But before we get stray too far from it, let's return and focus on mind on what truly matters: war. That's it. That's my transition to the war mind. I don't have anything better than that.
Oh Lord. That's our "we tried" metal.
They can't all be bangers.
Yeah. So this is another pair of songs actually that brings us back to the Destiny motif special a little bit, because I opened that special. Well, rather, we opened that special talking about how it was partially inspired by the fact that I have somewhat recently gotten a tattoo of the character Rasputin, also known as the War Mine from Destiny. That episode didn't really have room for this character to be in there because it has a couple motifs that vary depending on context, and also I was through the playlist of that episode, which was a more curated storytelling kind of playlist. I was trying to bring the narrative that led to the Stronger Together song with all the motifs playing one after the other. But Rasputin was dead already by then, so he wasn't one of the allies joining you. So his motif isn't in that song as a result.
Yeah, that checks out.
So we never actually got to talk about the character that inspired me to get this tattoo. And I often say that even though the two tattoos that I have are gaming related, I don't have them because of the franchise. I have them because of the stories.
Of course.
So let's talk a little bit about Rasputin's story. Um, so we have two songs
and themes.
And themes. We have two songs here. One is "The War Mine" from the original Destiny, Destiny 1. This is far more militaristic. It has some strings that give momentum, but it also has a lot of brass giving the sort of sense of power, of militaristic power.
I derisively described it in my notes as Space Pirates of the Space Caribbean.
It has a little bit of that.
Yeah, but it works as a nice little puppy for big-time players doing big, cool things, you know?
It should have also been noted that Rasputin is probably the character that has changed the most in terms of what Bungie wanted to do with him.
Yeah.
Because there is, as an example, there is a concept art where he was actually in a humanoid robotic body, and supposedly Destiny 1 would have you rescue him. That changed into him being a war mind, a big, powerful AI for planning military maneuvers in Destiny 1.
Yeah.
And from Destiny 1 to Destiny 2, it changed into him being the war mind, where he is the most powerful AI that humankind has ever created. And the other quote-unquote war minds were retconned into being sub-minds, where they are less powerful AIs that are under Rasputin's control, so to speak.
I see. Should we talk about a God of Mass right away then?
Yeah, I think it's fair.
Then I have one main word as a descriptive for it, and that word is big.
It is big. It's
also a big track full of big sounds.
And it plays when you go into a very big bass.
Even the quieter strings part evoke vastness, which is, as we all know, pretty big. And it gave me 4X Games vibes. Like, it would feel right at home in a Galactic Civilization part.
I think
until it changes pace again, of course, because it's Destiny.
Yeah, this is another song. A God on Mars is another song that's a medley.
Yeah.
It also plays the title of God on Mars also play on words because it's using themes from Rasputin, who is basically a god of war for humans, just made out of technology rather than a natural god. But it's also referring to the main enemy of the Destiny 2 Warmind expansion, which is a so-called worm god. So it's a little bit of a play on words. It's referring to two gods on Mars. But yeah, this song actually feels a bit more relevant to the story of why I got the tattoo, even though it's from a much earlier expansion. The expansion that made me want to get the tattoo was actually the Witch Queen, the final season of the Witch Queen, called Season of the Seraph. Yeah. And some of the main things that the Season of the Seraph dealt with was actually revealing the true origin of Rasputin as a character and how Rasputin evolved through different experiments and not just by him, but also by people involved around him. So the short version of the story is he was created to be a god of war, to supplant the traveler and rule humans, so that he would be the ultimate legacy of a mad scientist called Clovis Bray. But through contact with his much more sensible daughter, he gets in touch with the arts. In fact, there is a sort of a gag in the game that he is one of the last surviving fans of ballet There's ballet playing in a dungeon themed after him, all that sort of stuff. So
That's neat.
to sum up his story, basically, he was coded to be something uh, more distant from humans, but through contact with the arts, he learned to be more humane and more human. And
Which
at the
again
very
ties into kind of adding relatability to those large stakes.
right, and in my case in particular, I believe I have mentioned in the podcast before. If I haven't, I mention it here. I am autistic. I have been diagnosed formally with
Right.
autistic disorder, autistic spectrum disorder, and I can relate to this idea of like my brain being quote unquote coded to behave in a way that is more distant from how other people behave, and then throughout my life learning to better behave, to be a better person, in no small part thanks to my contact with the arts. uh,
Yeah.
in fact, some of my best friends in my city right now are in a visual arts association. um, so it felt very relatable to me, so that's why I got the character tattooed.
I
And
see.
I think the song "A God on Mars," even though it was composed much earlier than when this aspect of the character was revealed, I think it kind of shows a little bit that maybe they had already planned this. Because to me, at least, while the more horror adjacent vibes are probably because of that worm god I mentioned, the song still feels more of a Rasputin song than a worm god song to me.
Yeah, like I was two changes of pace in the song. The one after that, in fact, was a part I didn't really understand until your description, where in particular, like, tonally, it's like the brave little guy sailing forth to conquer the vastness, which is already cool, but the drums in particular feel were the part that stood out to me because they are very present and they have a very approachable texture to them that feel very live orchestra in an otherwise primarily synthetic kind of track. And I think that's part of what reflects that humanized aspect of the synthetic mind that learn a bit more about humanity this way through the arts.
And I think also the mix of the more horror adjacent vibes of the song that are probably meant to be for that worm god boss,
Mm.
contrasting with the more technological vibes of what is very openly meant to be Rasputin's themes,
Yeah,
kind of creates a bit of a Frankenstein's monster aspect, uh, and that reflects on what we would learn to be his origin eventually, where he is the creation of a mad scientist who just wants to leave a legacy of power.
well,
And
honestly, for this one, like, if this was the first Destiny track that I had listened to, I would have given that to you 100%. But because we've already remarked on the fact that the tracks are stitched together, it kind of loses that aspect on the listen. Because it's not that different from any other track that don't meant to invoke this aspect. So this is a point where the way they stitch the soundtrack together is very detrimental to what they're trying to say here.
I mean, to be completely fair, I also have not played the Warmind expansion. That's another expansion that's not available to play anymore. So I cannot say exactly how everything was used here. All I can confirm is that the first couple minutes were basically the splash screen theme when you first booted the game up during that expansion. So that very early minute 2 minutes of the song are meant to be basically the new Warmind theme for Destiny
Yeah, I
2.
see.
So I don't know how it's used. It's possible I'm just reading a bit too much into the album version. I am, in fact, openly stating that realistically the horror adjacent vibes are there probably because of the Worm God and not because of another theme. But it does
But like, I'm not
result.
even really picking up on the horror vibes you've mentioned in this track. It's more about the vastness, and for the last part, about more like it feels like a real-time strategy game, which makes perfect sense there.
I wouldn't say necessarily. I guess horror is a poor term. It's just like I haven't found a better one to use. It's more of disconcerting vibe, let's say.
Hmm.
At least would put in contrasting with the more technological side. I really don't know what would be the best descriptor here. That's just how. That was just the first word that came to mind for me to write down my notes.
Mm-hmm.
But the result for me is that it ends up creating this aesthetic of sort of a more space opera Frankenstein's monster in a way, which kind of ties into his origins, which basically are as like a creature that was created just because the character could. The mad scientist could make it, so he did. Uh, but this one learned to be better through this mad scientist's daughter.
I mean, you say, but this one got better. Uh, in the story of Frankenstein, one could argue the creature is not the real monster of the story, you know?
Oh, 100%, but also the
Yeah,
creature does kill until the end.
of course.
Uh, Meanwhile, Rasputin, he does redeem himself by sacrificing himself. His final act in Season of the Seraph is that he's faced with a magical god of war from the Hive race, and
Mm-hmm.
he is tasked with finding a way to stop her. But that god of war becomes stronger with every act of war possible. Any act
Yeah,
of war
which you've
strengthens
mentioned
her.
last time, I believe.
Did I mention it on the podcast or did we talk about it on DMs? I think it was
No,
on
no, that
DM.
was in the podcast.
Okay, but yeah, so his final act is to sacrifice himself, and with him, his entire armament, because he controls weapons across the entire solar system, everywhere
Yeah.
where humans have touched. So the ultimate anti-war act strips the villain of power, of momentum, and drives her away because she is only fed by acts of war. So he
I
is fully
remember.
redeemed when Frankenstein's monster isn't. That's more what I meant. But yeah,
Okay.
in both situations, it is a case of the real monster being the inventor. Definitely not. I'm not disagreeing with that.
Of course.
But yeah, and again, the song also, this new version, it goes for a slightly less militaristic theme compared to the Warmind from Destiny 1, but it's much bigger because he's not a Warmind, he's the Warmind now, and he rules over a lot throughout the solar system. I think I don't remember the full quote, but he does say, uh, "I have no equals" when you meet him again in Destiny 2. Um, so yeah, he goes from being very egocentric, like he is the war mind and he recognizes his power and he enforces his power and he refuses to openly become your ally. Uh, and over the course, he becomes a better person and sacrifices himself. When in the past he had the history of not doing that, even when that would be the best solution to a problem. He would just hibernate until the problem went away when he didn't find an answer. Um, so yeah, the theme kind of has a little bit of a duality to it, I think, especially when you compare the two themes together. And he's a character that made me get a tattoo that cost me a pretty penny because it took a few sessions to complete. But there we are. That's the backstory to the tattoo and to our Destiny motifs episode.
Oh, no better way to move from finally the explanation in full and then some of your tattoo to other current events. In Music Arcade, now playing. So, what I've been playing besides, of course, these usual suspects, mainly some more Age of Wonders. This world is trying to murder me in so many ways, and managing to survive it despite its best attempt to end my run is very satisfying.
That's right.
But not much to note about on the musical front. It's still very ambient track, and I admit I haven't really paid attention. Forest games are just too great for having a second screen experience you can pay a bit more attention to ignore. And another game that's like that.
Yeah, I actually checked the soundtrack to the latest DLC Arc and Prophecy, and let's say that it's forgettable because it follows the briefing too well, in a way.
I see,
Because it is very ethereal, because the core of the DLC is this ethereal vibe.
Yeah, that checks out.
But yeah, I've obviously been playing that as well, as you may have noticed.
And then the other game I've played a bit recently, now that it released on Steam, is The Bazaar, which is an auto-battler sort of game that's got a nice polish to it, and the way you assemble some loose synergies is pretty satisfying. The fact that there's a PvP element but entirely asynchronous means that the stakes don't feel like they put too much pressure. And there was a launch price for a pack that included a fair amount of content that was reasonably priced, and once you're inside, aside from new characters that have entire new sets of items you can pull from that guide the gameplay, the drip-fed elements you earn throughout playing and seasons and the likes are only cosmetics, which feels overall pretty fair so far. I don't know how that will turn out in the future, because they have a habit of changing completely the monetization model, but with the hope that they'll settle down a little bit for once, I've been having fun with it so far. And have nothing to mention with the soundtrack. It's like 2 different tracks, and the silliest part of this whole experience is that you look at the DLCs pack from the game, and aside from the one character you can get if you bought the launch options and isn't in that pack yet, the other options are a board and some music. The packs are $80.
Ooh.
This is silly. Like, this is too silly to get mad, and actually you just look at that and go, oh, you kind of situations.
They tried to take our money.
they aren't going to take mine beyond that initial pack. Evan, what have you been playing besides Destiny, which I heard you play sometimes?
On occasion. It's currently Destiny is going through one of its 4 yearly holiday events. The one right now is the Solstice of Heroes. People just call it Solstice nowadays. Just basically a summer fest.
Yeah, it's when you put bikinis on top of your space armor.
You're joking, but this year's cosmetics are themed after the beach.
I wouldn't dare to joke about that if there wasn't a very distinct possibility this might have been the truth.
Usually it's not like that. Like the event has you forging a new set of armor, and that set of armor glows with your power. And the cosmetics you can buy are just a different version of that very same set of armor that glows with a different color depending on what power you're using. This year, they actually made completely separate sets between the gameplay version and the cosmetic version. And the cosmetic version this year is themed after the beach. So you have warlocks going around in Daisy Dukes and big hats. But yeah,
big hats, good.
It's a fun time. It has its own song theme that plays when you're at the tower, which is the main social hub. But it's not any new music. It's just
it returns every time the event returns during the year. Okay.
Yeah, every year. But yeah, it's a fun time. Also, still playing after Ink Revival. The game is still in early access, so new songs get added now and then. But there's no official release of the music yet. I'm enjoying it personally. I think it's probably the better soundtrack of the 3 Endemic Creations games. Those being Plague Inc., Rebel Inc., and now After Inc.
Yeah.
I have also dabbled a little bit more in Nine Kings after they released the King of Nomads. The game doesn't have much of a soundtrack to speak of. It's very cheap tuney and very easy to just fill in the background with a video on your second monitor instead.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I have been playing Age of Wonders 4 as well.
Yep.
I think the base game still has the better soundtrack compared to the DLCs, but the DLCs still are pretty good soundtracks. I personally am playing a bunch of underground goblins that are not greedy, but they are very what's the word?
Pragmatic?
Territorial. That's the word. They are not greedy, but they are very territorial. So it's been an interesting ride, especially since this is the first time that I've played a game where the map generation generated a lot of Eldritch Gates. So I have been building more of an army than I usually do. We'll see how that ends up.
Good luck with that. With that, I believe that is the end of our episode. Thank you all very much for listening. You can send a message via the comments on YouTube. I don't know if you can comment things on Spotify, but if you can, well, great then. You're in charge of reading those.
Oh God.
You can also send us an email at music.arcade.podcast@gmail.com. You can like stuff. You can watch. You can tell your friends to watch. You can shill as much as you want. You have our entire support to be obnoxious. And yes, I said our. Everybody is involved, and everybody will take responsibility if after the third time you post the link in an hour to someone, they start blocking you. Okay, maybe I went too far, but any support is always appreciated, whether it's those kind of peddling or just listening and enjoying. Hope you are looking forward to next episode, which should be with a full cast. And until next time, have a good one, everyone.
See you next time.